Hey guys, Lynn Burke here, owner of Blues City Music, LLC in Cordova, Tennessee. Thanks for stopping by. Today we're in our Room of Doom, which is our amp demonstration room. You can come in here and demo the 19 amps we have in here, or I can roll in, roll out, whatever you need. It's acoustically correct, 8.5-inch walls. Nobody complains. You can play as loud and as long as you want here. And we get a lot of customers that come in here and do just that. But then I also get a lot of calls on very important questions, and that is the topic of today's video. What do you want this amplifier to do that you're planning on buying, and where do you plan on playing it? Now, the budget we can talk about later, and the sky's the limit on that, okay? We can start out inexpensive and go as high as you want. Not necessarily the most expensive is the best tone. Depends on what you're looking at. It could probably primarily just aesthetics. So let's talk about what you want this amplifier to do. Are you a brand new player? Are you a beginner that's taking lessons? Are you an adolescent? Are you a teenager? Are you a grown adult that just says, hey, I want to play again? Well, I've got some time now. Kids in bed, I can spend some time and on my own and play. Or are you a touring professional or a recording artist that is looking for something else, another tool in your arsenal on what you're doing in your day-to-day life? So those are big questions we can talk about. If I want to give you a little of my background briefly, I've been playing since 1976. My first guitar was $100. No, let me take that back. $199. Got it strings and things here in Memphis. That was the world's largest privately owned music store, 86,000 square feet. I've got a big shop here at 2,200 square feet. Their place was huge. It was a 1961 Les Paul Jr. Those days I was running around with the Holiday Brothers, Tate Yon. I was running around with David Nason and the greatest guitar player that's ever walked or ever will, and that is a fact, Sean Lane. Period. End of discussion. Grew up with those guys. What did I have for my first guitar amplifier? My dad bought me this little small cylindrical piece of furniture that happened to have an amplifier built into the bottom, and it had a spherical cone on the top, and that was my cabinet. I could sit on it and play. I think we got it for like $35 at Yarbrough's, and I've been friends with those guys for 43, almost 44 years. That's back when they were in the old Cloverleaf shop over off White Station in Summer on the north side of Memphis. That's what I had with my 61. Now this is 1976, so if the guitar was only 15 years old, no big deal then. Now it's $6,000 guitar. And I promptly, several years later in life, sold it for $100 for some headers for a 73 Barracuda that I had. And I had a 340 engine in it, and I needed a car. So my amplifier was that. My second one I had when I was probably 18 was an acoustic 150. That's a solid state amp with a 610 cabinet. It's fine. And then shortly thereafter, I moved into a 71 Super Lead. Now, we're talking 78, 79. That's only an 8-year-old amp. It was relatively new then. So that was 100 watts with a 412 speaker cabinet. So I've seen a little bit of everything, the entry level to what have you. So that's why I need to ask you guys, what do you want this amp to do and where? Are you going to gig with it? You going to play in your bedroom? You going to play in your apartment? You going to play in the house? You going to wake the dead with the neighbors? You going to record with it? You going to play large gig, small gig, multi-piece band, 3-piece band? All that needs to be taken into consideration. So that's the first thing we need to figure out is, what do you want this amplifier to do and where? Okay? So you've got a lot of opportunities here. You can go with basically anything that's out there, new, used. You can buy on Etsy, who, by the way, just bought Reverb. This is 4th of August 2019. They bought Etsy bought Reverb.com a week ago. So it should be a better portal for them. We'll see how that turns out. You could sell on eBay, you could sell on Craigslist, you could put an ad in the paper, there's a million ways you can do this, and you could go out and find an amp that way too. So if you're an apartment player, regardless of your ability to play, you're not going to be able to make a lot of noise. So you've got two choices. You can either get something like a Fender Champ, which it's a 5 watt or 6 watt depending on the year. Now I'm not talking about new stuff today. I mean, I'm no fan of that version today. But the 70s Silverface is a great bang for the buck. So you could get a Silverface Champ for cheap, $600-700 at the most for a Silverface, or Blackface, 800 maybe. And you could take that and play all you want at home. You're not going to play metal with it. You're not going to play extreme hard rock and roll with a humbucker, because remember, in those early days, Fender was just making Esquires, Nocasters, Telecasters, Broadcasters, Stratocasters. They weren't doing much of anything in there with humbuckers. Yeah, they had the Jaguar and stuff like that, but they were not hot. So you stomp on a Fender Champ, it's going to fart out on you. It just doesn't have a lot of oomph and a lot of bottom end with an 8-inch speaker. So you could go to a Princeton, a 10-inch speaker, or even some of the newer ones with a 12-inch speaker. And we've got a really nice one in here, the Columbia Reverb from Lewis Electric. It's quite a bit more money, but it's a boutique amp, but it'll get you into that 12-watt area you need to be for at home. You could close the door and probably not bother the rest of the house for a while, okay? Or you could come up with some kind of amplifier that uses a hot plate, which is a heat sink, and that basically is going to allow you to run a high wattage, potentially high volume amplifier at lower volume. You could use Yellow Jackets, which takes EL34s or 5881s, 6L6s, whatever, and drops it down into basically EL84, smaller tubes. So you could trick that. You could go with a cab clone from Mesa Boogie, which works great. You could use that. Clone. You could simulate a cab. You could go with a Palmer DI. You could go with an Ox. Now that's pretty expensive. You can go with an Ultima attenuator, similar to the THD hot plate. That's like essentially a heat sink. So there's ways that you can trick the system to make it work for you. You can run a mono pedal into the effects loop, and you can modulate the output transformer without having to change the volume, the master volume yourself. So there's a lot of ways to do that. All of that I just discussed basically tells you got way more amp than you need for your setting. That's the most important situation you got to realize. That apartment, that townhouse, that condominium, that bedroom, you're going to have to keep it low wattage. And even then it can get sometimes too loud. Or you're going to have to get an amp like the Quilter. They've got some great amps out there in their Class D that have headphone jacks, and you can do that. Mesa Boogies have headphone jacks. Nobody will hear you, okay? And you can sound like a monster rock star at Wembley all day long. So what do you want it to do and where? So now you've determined kind of a size that you need. That's what we're getting at here, is how big of an amplifier your setting can take. If you're planning on coming in here like a lot of kids do, and I want to buy a dual rectifier and an oversized 412, I'm going to go, that's awesome. Now my close friend, Chris DeBaldo, one of the original founders with Wayne Sweeney and Josie of Saliva here in Memphis, they've sold 7 million copies of their records. Chris is retired, he's not playing anymore. Chris ran 450 watt triple rectifiers and 8 412 cabinets. 8. No bands are even doing that anymore. Everybody's run in-ear monitors, which I absolutely hate because there's no feel in it. Greg Crafton and I spent a lot of money on that in our band about 10 years ago. It was the best they had out there. It was $3,000 for the system, and I hated it. I had to sit on the amplifier to get some feel out of it. So there's going to be some trade-offs. That's why I'm saying when you get the amplifier, the class and category that you're thinking about, it's got to be matched for your setting. So those are something to think about right there. Do you want a 112-inch speaker in a head with a cabinet or a combination amp, which is going to have the amplifier and the speaker enclosure built together. A 212. Fender has a Bassman 410. They've got a Super Reverb of 410s. Do you want a 412 cabinet? Mesa Boogie's got an oversized and a traditional. So there again, how are you going to transport this thing? Let's say you've got the room to be able to run a 412. You got this great big monster, I love me man cave, and you want to go play with your buddies. What 18-year-old kid are you going to find to come help you put this thing in the back of what kind of vehicle? Now, you're going to need a truck and put it in the bed and need to be able to close it so it doesn't get rained on and messed up. I drive a full-size F-350 Platinum Dually, and I don't think I can get a 412, certainly not an oversized Mesa in the back when the seats are folded up in a cargo setting. So I don't know where you're going to take that. Your best bet would be to go with a 212. A 212 is extremely efficient, okay? So if we kind of get you thinking about bigger is not always better. I've been to a lot of gigs. I was a sound guy too, where when I was with Kish Moody, who is in my band now, House of Melody Band, he's a lead guitar player, lead singer, and his band called Monoxide Project. We did a gig down in Lula, Mississippi at a casino, and it was for $10,000. It was for who was going to win. You know, those things are political. They already figured out who it is. It's probably some dude that owes them $10,000, and they're just going to push the money, and it's going to be even Steven. Okay, you don't have to pay anybody, right? So bottom line is, we go down there, and these dudes, well, the bands have got all Marshall half stacks, DSLs, TSLs, JCM 800s, JVMs. For a casino gig, 45 feet away, grandma's over here playing slot machine. She don't want to hear Enter Sandman through a 412 that loud in casino, and they're not going to let you do it. Matter of fact, they wouldn't even let you do a sound check at all. So I beat that. I brought 2 of my Soldano 112 50-watt combos, okay? Simple. 17, 14 inches, 50 watts, 2 masters. I had both of them on 9 on the master and about 5 on the preamp. And I told each one of them, hey, give me 1 power cord. Boom. Hey, no more noise, okay? So people are real picky about noise. So even when you got a live gig, you got to pay attention to what you're doing with that. Now, if you think you're going to go in here and trick the system, and my good buddy Wendell Cox and Travis Tritt does this all the time. Okay, it works, but they're playing big arenas. He can get away with it. Travis doesn't like a lot of stage volume, okay? So Wendell plays a Fender amp, and he takes his 412, his Marshall 412, and turns it around backwards. Okay. Yeah, sends the sound out that way. He mics it from it goes on the back, and then it goes through the PA, and everything is good, right? Okay, you can do that. He's playing big enough settings where he can get away with that. But if you're playing Huey's, if you're playing O'Charlie's, if you're playing Buffalo Wild Wings, and you show up with the 412, they're going to send you right back out to the van or the truck and say, you can put that back in there because you ain't playing it in here, okay? So you're going to show up with either a 112 head and cabinet combo or a head with a 212. And that's pretty much what you're going to be able to get away with. Now, there's a lot of bands out there that'll also play modeling amps. You can play a Kemper, which is a profiling amp. Now, some guys swear by that, but I'm sorry. As good as it is, it ain't the real thing. That's a fact. It's close, but it's not the real thing, okay? Almost Famous is a band here in Memphis. Hands down, I've been to all 50 states, been to every continent in the world except Africa and Australia, and that's going to change this year. And they're the best cover band money can buy. They've got done all kinds of Grammy work. They're playing Line 6 pods. Why? Because all their sound is going in their ears, no wedges up front for monitors, and it's going through the PA. And guess what? It's a digital Line 6 pod, so the volume low is the same gain structure as it is wide open. Now you can add or subtract gain how you want to, but it's not going to be like a tube amp with a master volume where the higher you get it, it's got a tendency to have some more gain, some more feel, some more oomph to it, okay? So those are a bunch of other options you can do. Now, once you decide on whether you want to go with the combo or the head and cabinet and the sizes they're in, you need to find out how many channels do you need. Now, most monster players out there could play a gig all day long with a single channel, okay? All day long. The average is going to be 2. You got one clean, you got one dirty. A lot of bands that played 4 input Marshalls. I've got a 69 Super Lead Tremolo with a plexi circuit when it was built in December of 69. You can roll the guitar volume back, but it's still not going to get real clean. It's going to get a plexi clean. It's not going to be super clean like if you had a master volume. So again, you have that opportunity to determine how you want to run your channels. If you understand volume, roll off, pick attack, pick type, pick location on the strings, whether you're playing way back like Hendrix did or up closer to the fretboard. I'm a little bit closer than I probably should be, but that's where I am. I can't play a Strat very well because I pick too deep and I hit the middle pickup. Well, then you can probably get away with a single channel all day long. And if you just take it and hit it with a boost pedal if you need to of some sort for a lead solo, okay? Some amps have 3 channels. Now I do have an amp that I absolutely adore now. It's a red leather embossed in a crocodile pattern, Mesa Boogie Triple Crown 100. This amp freaking rocks, okay? It's the Mac Daddy. And monster clean, amazing crunch, old Plexi School type crunch. And then it gets nasty if you want to. Alice in Chains, Velvet Revolver, anything like that. And that's one way to employ that. It's a 3 channels way cool. Diesel's got a 4 channel and a VH4, okay? So you really need to think about how you're going to run your channels. Do you need an effects loop? Now, most of your modulation goes through the effects loop. Your distortions, your wah pedals, and all that stuff does not go through an effects loop, okay? And then you're going to have to make sure that when you check this amp, the original Soldano SLO 100 was designed with a plus 4 dB decibel studio grade line level effects loop. And it was prior to the tone stack. It was after the gain stages for the overdrive and the normal channel, whether it was clean or crunch, but it was right in the middle there before the tone stack. Mike did that because in the early days, when guys were running rack gear, they didn't really have a lot of good opportunity to adjust the EQ. So Mike says, look, let's put the loop there, and then you can adjust the EQ afterwards. If that particular device needs an EQ. And that's what Mike used to do. People started whining when they started getting all these Maxon boost pedals and Maxon and Ibanez and everybody else is out there has got an $80 to $150 pedal out there of some type, whether it's a chorus, flanger, delay, Univibe, whatever. Those what goes through an effects loop. So I finally got Mike to change it. People complain, but I finally got it because I knew I could sell some. Myself and Steve King, rest in peace, buddy. God bless you. My dear friend passed away recently, and he and I had the first ones ever made. Okay? It was way cool because you could use the effects return in the back as well to control the return, and then you'd use the individual master volumes as the sends. So remember, you have send and return or in and out on the effects loop. So do you need an effects loop? And you need to make sure that it can handle your pedals in either a -10 or -20 dB effects level loop, which would mean it would be tube buffered, okay? Not real hot like a line level studio loop, okay? That's something to think about. So you've got a lot of opportunities there, and then finally does it have onboard reverb, does it not? And you're going to need one with a master volume. There's not many places you're going to be able to play with a 4-input non-master volume Marshall style amp. The old Fenders had master volumes on them. So those are a lot of things to think about. So now we've talked about what and where. You still got to determine what type tone it is you want this amp to give you. I always ask a guy, who's your favorite player? Who do you want to sound like? Even though no matter how long you try, you're never going to sound exactly like that because it's in these 10 fingers. Okay? Tony Iommi's got some that are kind of missing. The tips are cut off in an accident when he was younger. He still rocks the guitar, and it's in your fingers, a majority of your tone. Not all of it, majority of it is, okay? So That's going to have to be something that you're going to think about, okay? Who do you want this amp to sound like? If you're playing the Beatles, you're not going to play a triple rectifier from Mesa Boogie. If you're playing Marty Stewart, you're not going to play a VH4 from Diesel. So you got to find out where you are. Can this amp do what you want with that type of tone? And out of that, you're still going to have other choices. Is it EL34, EL84 British style amp, or is it 5881 6L6 6V6 US style tone? The European EL34s, Slade, Zeppelin, anybody that was big in the 60s and 70s, they were primarily pushing EL34 amps. They have what's called sag, a little bit more sag. When you listen to Buddy Guy play, he's playing vintage Fender amps, and he's a monster Chicago blues, not a Memphis / Delta blues. He's a Chicago blues player. Knows what he's doing, obviously. I've seen him in concert at a festival, and he was great. Not my vibe, but he's really talented. He couldn't do that with a really fast-acting Soldano SLO 100 or Triple Crown 100 from Mesa Boogie, something like that. It's not the feel and the vibe he's looking for. There's not enough sag there. Joe Satriani, my buddy Bill Hudson, who's in Northtail right now. Hey, August 2nd, 2019, Bill's album just came out. He used to be in Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He was in Circle to Circle. He was in I Am Morbid. This band rocks, Northtail. He's a monster musician, unbelievable musician. And he's really fast, especially when he's sweep picking. And I've been on his rear end for years. Hey, you got to learn some blues licks and something else beside metal. And he's really morphed that into his stuff. This band is great. Not trying to get anything from the band. I'm just trying to tell you it's really, really, really good. And he's going to have the right amplifier for that. He couldn't do that on a deluxe reverb. So those are things we need to take a look at in the type tubes that you're interested in. And based on the tone that you're looking for with the player, it's already going to be dictated. That's where you're going to have to fall into, if in fact that's who you want to replicate. I get a lot of Van Halen guys coming through here. 78 in April, I ran into Eddie and talked to him at length about his guitar and his amp. Soldano told me he's worked on that amp twice, and it is absolutely bone stock. He could care less what anybody else says. He's been to the house. He and Valerie and Eddie, they had dinner. They talked about the amp. He took it back to the shop and worked on it twice. Bone stock. He just ran a Variac. And between 87 and 93 volts, that's where the tone came. And then these 10 fingers. Yeah, he rocked the whole planet in those days. So you got all this. Now we've determined what you want the amp to do, where, the type. We need to figure out a budget. You can find one used online all day long without a warranty. And if you've got a good tech like I have, Mike and Mark over at Musical Instrument Service here in Memphis off Highland, they can rebuild anything. They're doing all the amplifiers over at Graceland for Elvis, his estate. They do all that. They do a lot of big clubs in town. If it's electronic, he can fix it. So if you're a touring musician, it's going to be tough banging around out there with a vintage amp. Now, Angus Young does it all the time, but he's got close to a dozen vintage Marshalls he takes with him. So when one of them goes out, the other one's there, turns it on, boom, he's rocking again. And his tech will service it in between stops, or that night, whatever. So you could do that. But if you want to get a new one, you're going to end up with a warranty. Now, where is the best place to figure all of this out? I don't care if you come here. I'd love to have you come. There is no other shop anywhere in the country with a room of doom like we have right here. 16 by 13, acoustically sound, acoustically correct. That switcher right there in silver that I'm pointing at is the only 8 amp Bob Bradshaw switcher made. Bob's made switching systems for everybody under the sun. Every Grammy player out there. These amps over here, I had 4 Mesa Boogies. A Mark 590. The one right here, this one right there is a JP2C, John Petrucci style head. I got it dialed in exactly like his. I saw pictures of his setup. You want to be Petrucci? There it is. A Triple Crown 100, a Triple Crown 50, and then I've got a 412 with vintage 30s and a traditional straight. Over here I've got 4 diamonds. I've got a Heretic. I've got a Spitfire 2, a Nitrox, and a Phantom also going through a 412. These are all switchable and can all be on at the same time with an 8-button MIDI pedal. No lights illuminated, it's dead quiet in here. You push one, there's that amp. You push that one, there's that one. Right here below this Bob Bradshaw switcher, I've got a Rectiverb 25 and a Mark V 35 head that ties in to a 212 on this side of the room, a Rectiverb wide body 212. And then over here on my right, on this side, on the right side over here, I've got a wall of Metzabarbas. Also on the same type switcher, I have the Mesas on, tone bone head bones. Going through a 212, a 412, and I've got an M0, a Trinity, and a Skill 30. Now, I could bring any other amp in here you want. I can bring any of the Mesa combos. I've got 50 Mesa amps in stock. You could come in here and try any of them right in here. If you want to see what this potential amp is going to do for you after you determine what you want it to do, where you want it to do, it falls into your budget, it's the right tone for the guy that you want to sound like, and it's the right color, or if you decide you want a different color, I can hook you up with that. I'll put you on my bandstand out here. I've got a 6,000 watt PA system, QSC, active QSC, Allen and Heath analog, not digital, 16.3 Mix Wizard, DBX drive rack. Plus I've had Pro Audio Company come in here. Tony Gravier at Yarbrough's came in. They're the biggest Yamaha Pro Audio company in town. My father was a commercial architect for 55 years. He used them a lot for churches. He came in here and dialed this thing even better and got rid of the white and pink noise. There's no feedback whatsoever. 2 monitor mixes, 2 vocal mixes, 2 DIs for keyboard and for an acoustic guitar, 5-piece Bonham style custom drum kit, all 9000 series DW Artist hardware, drum shield, 10-foot drum shield, amp shields. Every amp is mic'd. I've got a 94 matchless DC30 in here. I've got my own Triple Crown 100 on a 412. I've got a 1970 Ampeg SVT and with an 810 cabinet from Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, thanks to my childhood buddy and longtime friend Ray Beebe. And then a JCM 800 from 1981 in a 2204 50 watt. I can replace any of those amps up there and put your particular amp up there. You can bring your band in here and they don't need anything. And we'll see exactly what it's going to do for you. That's how you buy an amplifier. So if you can't come to Blue City, wherever you go, and oh, by the way, you can come here anytime. And you can play as loud and as long as you want. Def Leppard could sound check in here and nobody's going to say a thing, especially at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We can wake the dead, okay? If you have to go to your local music store or somewhere like that, make sure whatever you see is got a flat EQ on it. Don't let this guy set this sucker up with the absolute greatest sweet spot this amp's going to have. You need to start out with what's this going to sound like with a flat EQ, 12, 12, and 12 o'clock on the bass, mid, and treble. Turn the presence off, and if there's a depth control or resonance control, turn that off. Start with the clean channel. Start in the middle position if you've got 2 pickups on your guitar. Just go to the middle. Okay, see where you are, right there in the middle. Listen to how this thing resonates. Listen to the note separation. Listen to the articulation of each note. Does it sound like that? You don't want it to sound like that. You want it to sound like that. Okay? Does he have to tip it up for you so you can hear it because it won't cut through the mix? Wrong amp for you. Okay? Then you could start dialing in the tone controls. Remember, more is not always better. Okay? And then you can start channel changing and changing pickup selections. But start out clean before you start throwing a lot of gain at it. See what this thing is going to do clean. I don't care whose record it is, there's always a ballad on there of some sort. Somebody's always playing something clean, okay? And clean headroom is everything. More power, more clean headroom. And when you're playing this amp, once you decide on all the factors we've talked about, your guitar volume should be set at about 8, maybe 7.5 for rhythm tones. And when you want to go into a lead, or a solo, roll the volume up. Nobody on the planet's better than Jeff Beck at doing that. Tell me, have you ever heard of a Jeff Beck tribute band? No. Nobody does volume swells, vibrato, finger picking like he does. No, doesn't happen. So I know this is a lot to take in. It's a lot to think about. That's why you can always contact me at www.bluescitymusic.com. Read about these amps. Check out our videos. We've got a big YouTube channel. I've got every social media out there except Snapchat, which is ridiculous for what I'm trying to do in the music business. Okay, I don't need to put little silly things on my head when I'm trying to do a video. So that does nothing for a business. Okay, plenty of stuff for you to listen to. A lot of those videos I did at American Recording Studio when I was partnered there and had my storefront there. I'm still with those guys over there, Brad Dunn and David Gecking, Donald Duck Dunn's nephew. So we've got some really good videos, no tricks, none of that. And call us 901-485-8250, JLB at bluescitymusic.com. Text me, call me, email, tweet, whatever. Just pick up the phone, call me. Leave a message, I'll call you back. And if I don't call you back, it's because I'm in the jet somewhere around this planet. I'm getting ready to start a 13-day trip here soon around the world again. I'm a 777 captain, check airman for FedEx. And when I'm not here, my web store is active, but the shop is not. So give us a call. We'll help you find the amplifier you want, okay? And I'll make sure that it's what you need. I don't have to sell you an amp to pay rent here. I don't have any trouble covering the rent here. I want to make sure that I get you in the right amplifier to start with. And I have turned down dozens and dozens of Soldano SLO 100 sales to guys in apartments, and I refuse to sell it because it's going to wake the dead. You're going to get the cops called on you. The neighbors are going to be mad at you, and you're not going to be able to play it. So we've got a lot of options for you, a lot to take in here. Watch this video a couple times, and if you have any questions, you know where to find us, okay? The other thing about Blues City here is we're not out-of-work guitar players. My band, House of Melody Band, Kisha and I have been working for 3 months on our own version of Freebird. Skinner knows this. Buddies with Ricky Medlock. They're retiring this year. We're tracking at Fame in Muscle Shoals, at American here in Memphis, where Elvis recorded In the Ghetto and Suspicious Minds. We're also tracking my Filipino honkettes, Nick, Jerry, and Penny, in Hong Kong on the Kowloon side at Avon on a Neve 8068 with Telefunken U47 and a Neumann U87. And then we're finishing this at Abbey Road, London, Studio 2. The same studio that Dark Side of the Moon from Pink Floyd was cut, the White Album, and Abbey Road from the Beatles. It's an iconic studio, so we do it all here. We're retail, we record, we play live, we do it all. And my daughter's a classical singer too, so I get it on all fronts. So give us a call, we can hook you up, okay? And until then, check us out here, bluescitymusic.com, House of Melody Band. Check us out on all the digital outlets, and you'll dig it, okay? Until then, do like we always do, because we have it dialed in here and exactly the way it should be for this size room. We turn it up loud because the room is capable of handling it. The neighbors don't complain, and we're dialed in perfectly in here. That's what we want you to do. Turn it up. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again. Peace out.